when I went to Venice was the first time I learned about these books called the Rick Steves books. Have you heard of those?
No.
So these are
Rick
one of the
Steves.
Yeah, look them up. They're one of the coolest things that for anybody that likes to travel, whether that's nationally, internationally, wherever you are at listening in the world. They're travel books. So
got it.
He started when he was 18 years old, and he began traveling, funding his trips by teaching piano lessons. But then when he started, 1976 is when he started this business, right? And it was in Europe, and it started to grow from a one-man operation. Now he's got 100 full-time staff, people that travel full-time and write these books. If you want to maximize your time and your dollar, so you want to save money and see the most amount of things, like when I was in Venice, I think I learned about, it was like Leonardo da Vinci's middle finger was preserved out there, and you can go see it. And there's a reason behind all that. But there's all these amazing, unique little factoids that explain the entire city, whether that's food, whether that's history, museums, all that stuff. I would recommend, spend $20 on one of those books if you're going to go somewhere, and you will have the best time you could possibly have.
Well, perfect. Venice was our next location.
Well, there we go. Venice. Yeah. Is a super cool city. It's the first time I've ever been somewhere that they had no cars.
Right.
Yeah.
Boats.
You travel by boat. Yep.
Yeah.
And in such a cool way. The food is incredible. The people are so cool. Like the history, the museums, the art, like it's where you see it's like art, like the Sistine Chapel, it's painted on all of these and beautiful, I don't want to say castles, but these incredible homes, and just it's pretty wild to see.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Sistine Chapel, because our next location is Rome. Spent a week there a couple years ago, and for all the same reasons, Venice is amazing. Rome is too. It's the art, it's the history, it's the architecture. I did a tour of the Vatican in 3 hours. We had because usually it's an all-day thing. It takes at least 9. But we had a special hookup, which was awesome. However, so my tattoo right here is Michelangelo's Pieta of the Virgin Mary holding Jesus. And the sculpture in real life is at the Vatican. So I was able to see an original sculpture of Michelangelo that I have a tattoo of and get a picture with it, which was really cool. And I love all the ancient Greek sculptures and artwork they have. But yeah, the food, there's this place called Ad Hoc with it's specialized in truffles, which was amazing. But yeah, I can't say enough about Rome. One of my favorite cities in Italy.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's the capital.
I
felt stupid for saying that, so I just was not going to say it.
Yeah. I've been to a few places in Italy, but not Rome yet. Lake Como and Milan and a few others like that, which Lake Como is unbelievable. But you mentioned Greek statues, which, if I may, will get me to segue over to Greece.
Go for it.
Yeah, Greece is amazing. We were in Lake Como for Aaron and Natalie's wedding, Aaron O'Connell. And what we did afterwards was we did a week in Greece, and we landed in Athens, and we took a tour from island to island, and it was unbelievable. Of course, I was on crutches because I had a broken heel. I broke the week before. But hiking Apollo's temple, seeing, the stone that Zeus deemed the center of the world, where he sent his eagles around the world, and that's where they landed, was right there in Greece. And the history behind the entire city, and seeing all those original statues in the museums and everything like that, just it is really cool. It's really cool. And then of course you have Mykonos and Santorini, which are also unique and beautiful as well. But I love the history parts of it that are just so cool.
In true Kane fashion, you went to his homeland.
I went home. It felt like that. It felt like I was being reunited once again.
Jumping across the channel, we have London. London's kind of like the European New York to me. That's the best way I can put it. It's very fast-paced, very big, very, also it's big, but it's also dense. incredible museums there. I think I did like 15 museums when I was there last time. Very central. You can really do anything you want there, and have a great time, depending on what you like to do. And you can get anywhere in Europe, LA to London, super easy flight. And yeah, that's London.
Yeah, London's a pretty big hub, right, for traveling?
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've never been.
And then Ireland, jumping very close by. I worked on a film in Belfast, Ireland, called Your Highness. And I spent an entire summer there when I was, I think, 19 or 20. And it was an incredible experience. People there were super welcoming and very great place to go. You also got to see in Belfast the biggest cranes in the world where they built the Titanic, which is crazy. It's like massive in size. You're like, how are they doing this in the early 1900s? Insane.
Wow.
And from Belfast, you can very easily get to Dublin, which is another very historic, fun, interesting city that we both have been to.
Yeah. Yeah. Driving across the country now, horizontally, not vertically, you can get across from coast to coast in 3.5 hours, if I remember. So yeah, the green there, the castles, the history. I remember, when I first went, I was 12, which was so cool. A friend of mine, his family traveled all the time, and he was able to bring one friend, and I was lucky enough to be that friend. Shout out to you, Chris. I love you, man, and your family. But even at 12, I remember having to duck through some of these doors because the doors and the beds were only 5 feet long, and I'm just thinking, how small were these Irish people? Well,
it's funny you say that because Europe actually is similar to a New York, right, where space is more expensive and there's less of it. Yeah. But this is like these cities were built long time, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, cobblestone streets. Obviously, those have been like redone, but it's those historical sites have been around forever. And the city planning in the 1400s or 1300s, however long. Forever, longer.
Yeah. I remember I was out there and I kissed the Blarney Stone, which is meant to give you the gift of gab, which I would say
Mac Dre.
Yeah, I could say I got because before I couldn't even have 2 words in a conversation with somebody. But then one of the locals told me not to do that because some of the other locals, which are less kind apparently, do things that you don't want to put your lips on something. So just think about that before you go and kiss the Blarney Stone next time. But it is really cool seeing that history and those old castles that you can come through. I remember one of them had in the entrance, it was like melted stone, and I was trying to figure out how that could be, and it was right above the entrance. So if somebody was breaking into the castle, they would have like a giant pot of like molten something, and they would pour it down, and it would melt the stone, but probably basically disintegrate anybody that was trying to break in. So you think
medieval
twice.
Tactics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the cells they had were like 1.5 feet wide and like 6 feet deep, and they'd stack like 3 or 4 or 5 people in one of them. And you're like, I would never break the law just so I don't have to sit in this claustrophobic, nightmare of a jail cell. But different times, man. Different times, but really, really cool to see.
Oh my God. You want to do Germany?
Germany, near and dear to my heart. I have worked a lot in Germany. I believe the first place I ever went was Berlin, which has a very unique nightlife. But also just, I met so many friends out there, and we had so much fun. I remember going to the Bambi Awards, which is like essentially the Oscars in Germany, and seeing so many like amazing, successful actors and actresses that I'm just such fans of. And be a part of that was so cool. The GQ Awards were really cool. And I was just kind of thrust into all this stuff at a young age, and I was never really traveled too much at that time. And so Germany was one of those places that I got to frequently visit back, which was really cool. And I remember walking around and I'm like, I feel normal here, because everyone there's guys walking down the street that are just 7 foot on a regular, like every fifth guy, you know.
Be clear, it's a height thing.
It was a height
thing.
Yeah, it was a height thing. Yeah, exactly. And so I could walk into a store and find clothes that fit me, and I love that, you know.
Hell yeah.
And selfishly, I love that.
The normal clothes are big and tall.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But there's Berlin, which is a more developed city. You know, you've got outside surrounding cities that are more still kind of like how they were. To a degree, I guess you could say, but less developed in that sense, more countryside stuff. But Munich and Dusseldorf, and I think it was Munich where I saw Morton play. He came in for like a couple hours, and I was on stage with him. And
nice.
I took a train like 6 hours to go see him. We hung out all night, and then he flies back to LA within 6 hours of landing in
Typical
Germany.
Morton.
Yeah, which was just such a cool experience, but it's so fun to, you know, experience stuff like that and have friends that are doing cool things like that. But yeah, Berlin's really cool. In Berlin, they have this really cool, I want to say it's weekly, I'm not sure, but it's almost like a swap meet. And then they have people bring out full, you know, drum sets and all their instruments, and they're playing live music, and then all these really cool, unique things that you can go buy and go see, and, you know, just a really cool, fun activity to do in the summer, really.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, good times out there.
And then in October, you can do Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Our next location, Prague, in Czechoslovakia. Very interesting city. You definitely get the Gothic medieval vibes, which is really cool. They have a classical music museum, which I went to. They also have a nightclub that each floor of the nightclub is a different genre of music. So you can be in like 80s dance music, and then hip hop, and then rock, and then all this different stuff on each floor, which was really cool. I thought that was a unique way to design a nightclub. And then we also would hike. We stayed in a hostel and hiked from the hostel all the way through these really cool diagonal streets that are tiny, and we got lost like 10 times because there's no way to know where you're going. You just kind of, there's a massive hill up there with, you know, the castle and the fort on it. So we just head towards it, right? But yeah, very worth visiting and checking out if you're into Gothic architecture, and a very kind of culture-rich environment. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I'll put it on my list.
And then a place we've both been to again, which is pretty much all of them, but Barcelona, España.
Yeah.
Estadio Olímpico. Great stadium.
That's awesome. It's Barcelona's beautiful. I love that culture, you know, out there, and the beach vibe, and, you know, the food is cool, great, and I think I'm a big fan of what's it called when they take the naps in the middle of siesta? That's not. Is that what it actually is called? Yeah. So the siestas are nice, you know.
Starting dinner at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah, it's a very cool, different vibe than any other country I've been to, but it's very laid back and chill and beautiful. Just the people are beautiful, the landscape is beautiful. It's definitely some place that I would recommend visiting, you know. Very
similar to Ibiza, where we both have been as well. I got to stop saying that because we both pretty much been to all of them. But Ibiza, amazing island in the middle of the Mediterranean off the coast of Spain. And, you know, definitely if you're into music, right, the nightlife there is incredible. But we went for a week and, went to a couple of Morton shows. And it was essentially, you can go there and not drink and still have a blast. Like, we were eating healthy, we were hiking during the day, laying out at the beach, walking. Like, you can get healthy food and honestly do like a health trip out there too. I think that's like a very common misconception, is like you have to go there and just dance until 6 a.m. every night, which we did some of the nights. But again, just there's a lot more to it. And we took the boat out to Formentera, the bright blue water like the Bahamas. We did run into a few jellyfish, however.
There are a lot of jellyfish out there. That's what I noticed in
There are a lot of jellyfish
in that area, in Greece, in France. You want to jump into the water, and sometimes late at night, and then you will see that a swarm of them, if that's what they're called, will just come through, and there'd be thousands of them, and that's just not somewhere you want to jump in, personally, unless you're crazy, unless you're loco.
Tell me about Croatia.
Yeah, Croatia. What a beautiful city. I think it's one of the oldest cities in the world, is in Croatia. It's very hot from what I remember. It's so hot that the first time I jumped in the water, it felt like I got punched in the face with a bag of salt, because apparently it's so hot that it'll evaporate into the sky, and then it'll rain back down, and it just gets saltier and saltier over time. So the only wildlife out there is sardines. Which
Your favorite?
I love. Yeah, I love sardines. But the water, the landscape, the history there, some of these old cities, they literally have, it looks like you're in olden Croatia, that they've got these pillars that are still built, and it looks like, my easiest explanation would be like, Greece, or like old Hercules, you've seen that from back then. That's what it looks like. You're walking through there. But Croatia is just, I used to be afraid of heights. And that was one of the first places I ever went cliff jumping. It was about 50 feet off. And we went up to the top of this cliff, and it was overlooking, this cove just filled with water. And boats would go into this cave and come back out. People would be swimming all over the place, a couple hundred people there. And it was about 50 feet up, I would say, roughly. And it was razor sharp to get up there. So you had to wear shoes. Well, I threw my shoes over. I was the last person to jump because, of course, I'm afraid of heights. I'd never done this before at the time. Getting ready to jump, and right as I'm about to jump, I hear everyone yell, "No, no, 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 no." And I almost fall over the edge. I catch myself, thankfully, and then right then this massive ship or boat comes out. And if I jumped, I would have landed right on top of this boat. So imagine you're afraid of heights at the time.
Jesus.
There's a boat that comes out, and everyone's yelling for you, and you already don't want to jump. And then that happens, and then you have to jump after that. Finally, the boat passes. I jump. And I'm thinking, after I land to hit the water, I'm like, how have I been afraid of this my whole life? It was so much fun. Went up and did it again. And it was not the last time I jumped off something fairly high. And if you go too high, it feels like you're hitting concrete. So don't go too high, I guess. But it was beautiful.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video.
And subscribe and hit the bell for a whole lot more to come.